Every dream in history was considered impossible until it had been accomplished. Behind each achievement, explorers have invented the future by going beyond the frontiers of certainties. They have broken the rules, challenging common assumptions to discover new solutions. Today, solving the environmental crisis seems out of reach. We need the same pioneering spirit that has in the past allowed mankind to achieve the impossible. This is how we will find the solutions to change the world. Bertrand Piccard, the visionary behind Solar Impulse, wanted to demonstrate the incredible potential of renewable energies and clean technologies. Solar Impulse was built to carry this message around the world.
Hello, Solar Pulse. Hello, Captain Piccard. I am inspired by your pioneering spirit.
You know, Mr. Secretary General, if an airplane like Solar Impulse can fly day and night without fuel, the world, of course, can be much cleaner.
Hotel India Bravo, turning final, 02 right.
More than an achievement in the history of aviation, Solar Impulse has made an achievement in the history of energy. Let's take it further.
What can be done in the sky can be done on the ground. Replacing old and polluting infrastructure by modern and efficient technologies is logical as much as ecological. Convinced that protection of the environment will become a reality only if it's economically viable, Bertrand Piccard has launched the second phase of his action, committing the Solar Impulse Foundation to identify 1,000 solutions that can protect the environment in a profitable way. Developed by startups and corporates, these solutions reduce pollution and improve efficiency in the fields of water, energy, construction, mobility, industry, and agriculture for a better quality of life. Assessed by independent experts and labeled by the Solar Impulse Foundation, they represent the market opportunity of the century, generating jobs and clean growth. In the near future, Bertrand Piccard will travel around the world again to present this unique selection of solutions with one goal: encourage governments, businesses, and institutions to go beyond compromise and set more ambitious environmental targets and energy policies. Here again, the spirit of exploration has a role to play in achieving what many people still consider impossible. And you can be a part of it.
Good afternoon to everyone. I don't need to recall all the challenges we have today with a war in Europe, energy issues, pandemic, environmental and climate crisis. But I just would like to notice why it is difficult to solve them. Have you noticed that the first reaction when there is a crisis is to believe that the future is going to be an extrapolation of the past, which is never the case, because the future is unpredictable and requires from us to be disruptive. So what does it mean? We use this word quite often in innovation startups. What is disruption? It is when we are honest enough to understand on which certitudes, which paradigms, which dogmas our vision of the world is based, and try to change it. And this is such a fascinating experience, Because we look at our certitudes, we look at what we have learned, and we try something else. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that. In the history of exploration of the 20th century, walking on the moon, climbing the Everest mountain, flying in the sky, why did it happen so suddenly in the beginning of the 20th century? Because it was not somebody who woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to invent that. No, it was dreams of humankind for thousands of years. Why didn't it happen before? So a lot of people will say, well, technology was not ready. No, not at all. Yeah, okay, for the moon landing, but for nothing else. Look at this airplane. It's built out of wood and cloth, which means that the Egyptians could have flown from the top of the pyramids 5,000 years ago. Why didn't they do it? Because it was prohibited by the mythology. Only the gods were allowed to fly. At the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci built models like that. He could have flown, but he was not stupid enough. He would have been tortured and burned by the church. The Nepalese, the Tibetans, they saw the Everest for centuries, but it was prohibited to profanate the holy mountain. So what happened at the beginning of the 20th century? It happened that explorers broke the rules. It was a psychological paradigm change, not a technical one. And explorers exist precisely to break the rules. Explorers are people who don't accept, they are not satisfied with what they see, what they have, so they want it different, if possible better. Which explains that in 66 years, which is really short in the history of humankind, you have the first airplane, you have the South Pole, the North Pole, the Everest Mountain, the Mariana Trench, and the Moon. Showing what? Showing basically that innovation does not come when we have a new idea. Innovation comes when we get rid of an old belief. And this is what we need to do today with all the challenges we have. How can we disrupt our dogmas, our cleavage, our ideologies in order to be realistic enough to find solutions? When I wanted to fly around the world in a balloon, it was exactly the same thing. The specialist told me, you can never do it because the winds take 3 weeks to go around the world, and the balloon who flew the longest until now has flown 6 days. Okay, what's the wording? You have to be really careful, because if you want to detect the paradigm, listen to each word. Here it's until now. Okay, until now it was like this, but we can do it differently. So we built another type of balloon. We flew 3 weeks non-stop, 45,000 kilometers, but it was the maximum of this new type of balloon, because at the landing, out of the 3.7 tons of liquid propane, there was 40 kilos left. You see the frost in the last fuel tank. So when you hear that the sky is the limit, it's wrong. The fuel is the limit. And this is what we don't understand so well in our world. Now we believe that we have energy, fuel everywhere. We don't see it, basically. We just use it. In a balloon, if you are running short of fuel, you fall down from the sky. So you really understand the value of it. So I was thinking, okay, I cannot do better than 20 days in the air with fuel. Let's try to get rid of the fuel and change the paradigm again. Have an airplane that would fly on solar power, run electric engines, charge the batteries, and break another paradigm that was saying that solar energy doesn't work when there is no sun. Ridiculous. Of course it works. You just have to store it, and there are a lot of ways to store it. So I had this picture done by an artist who did not know how the plane would look like, and I went to the airplane manufacturers, even the CEO of Boeing, and I asked him, can you build me this plane? And he told me with all his heart, of course not. Of course not. And I said, why? And all these people told me it takes 1 minute to calculate that the sun is not giving enough energy to have an airplane flying day and night. This is the way people handle energy today. It's all a question of production, of quantity. And if you don't have enough, it will not work. So what do we see with the problem in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, with the Russian gas, Russian oil? The first reaction is, where can we find additional oil or gas elsewhere? Instead of thinking, how can I save energy? How can I work really well with less gas, with less oil? How can we save? How can we be efficient? So 1 minute to know it wouldn't work, 3 years to see how it could work. How can it be efficient? So this is why this airplane was so big, 72 meters wingspan, but for the weight of a family car. And nobody, of course, wanted to build these wings. Because they said if an airplane is big, it's heavy. If it is small, it's light. But you want to be big and light, you're outside of the curve. But, you know, it's unbelievable how people are stuck in their certitudes. And when we speak today of the climate and energy transition, it's exactly the same. People stick to what they know, and they just resist to everything new. So it is true, I admit, that in the beginning we felt a bit like Dumbo, with the big ears trailing on the floor, everybody making fun of him. We were like that with our big wings that nobody wanted to build. But then, you know, when you are in a situation where people don't take you seriously because they think what you're doing is impossible, it's a fantastic way to attract talents. Because the people who come to join you are people who love to solve problems. They love to achieve the impossible. So you have the highest possible value in the team. If you are just doing business as usual, you can have lazy people coming because there's no problem to solve, just reproducing what we already learned. So all together in the team, we understood why Dumbo became the hero of the circus. He used his problem. He used his handicap, deployed his ears, and could fly. So we had to deploy our wings. But the wings had to be 10 times lighter than the best glider in the world, proportionally to the size, of course. So because the world of aviation thought it was impossible, we had to find someone who did not know it was impossible, and that was a shipyard. So I'm not saying that to repeat the joke of Mark Twain, but just to remind you that when you don't know that something is impossible, you don't have the filter that only accept what reinforces your previous assumptions. You just accept everything, every possible solution, every possible option, and then you see which one works and which one doesn't work. So they said, we can build this airplane as light as you want, but we cannot work with your team of engineers who don't know how to use carbon fiber. And then we went to our team, and the team said, are you crazy or what? We cannot work with a shipyard who never built an airplane. And it's exactly what happens today when we want to change something in the system. Each one thinks that the other one cannot do it, instead of thinking, how can I do it? So it took about 2 years to make the equation 1 + 1 = 3. Between the shipyard and his experience, our team with our experience, making a third experience of a completely new construction technology, allowing us to have the first prototype and then the plane to go around the world. For the funding, it was exactly the same. Nobody from the world of aviation, nobody from the world of energy to come support us at a high level, and I couldn't understand that. And the people who really supported us came from completely other sectors. Insurance companies, well, that's a good sign. Chemical industry like Solvay, Covestro, elevator company, telecommunication, Google, champagne, well, that was more for the plane than, that was more for the team than for the plane, I have to say. But, you know, I was disappointed in the beginning until I remembered that it was never the people selling the candles who invented the light bulb. It's completely other people. And in the automotive industry, we're saying exactly the same thing. The first successful electric car, was not made by a car manufacturer. It was made by a billionaire from internet who had no idea how to make a car. So he took the only thing he knew, that was a computer screen, and built a Tesla around it. And now you have all the car manufacturers running behind to desperately have a part of the market share. We see how dangerous it is to be focused on one thing, on one sector. It's dangerous to be a real specialist because we miss everything else. We act as in a straight line. We are trained to do like that. We want only what is scientifically proven, what is statistically reproducible. We want to project ourselves in the future with the ideas of the past. We don't want to be challenged by question marks or doubts or criticism. So we don't look left and right, and we go straight ahead. And it's what we've done for years. In the beginning, it was okay. Maybe with 2 billion people in the world, it was possible to do what has been done. With 8 billion, it just doesn't work. We're hitting an obstacle there. And when you hit an obstacle in the straight line, full power, you really crash. And then you think, why is life so bad with me? Instead of asking, why are we not ready for life? Because life is not a straight line. Life is made out of all the different directions, all the different ways to think, all the different visions of the world. And we don't know in advance which one is going to lead us to the good direction. So we have to try. We must be pioneers. We must be explorers. We take a road, we see where it goes. Sometimes it doesn't work. We try another one. And if we manage to look at our future in 3 dimensions like this, all the options, all the possibilities, life becomes a firework. For every way to think, there is another trajectory in life. And we just have to be clear enough with the different options today to see where we go with each strategy and each way of thinking. If we continue the way we do today, which means a so-called unlimited growth, we go somewhere. Where do we go? Probably an ecological disaster, a miserable quality of life, and I'm not going to repeat all the problems we're going to have, because usually all the speeches are about the problems, so you know them. Now, you can take another type of direction. Here, you think like this, where do you go? Some people say we have to degrow. Okay, what is degrowth? First, it's a big misunderstanding, because we speak about degrowth and we don't say what has to degrow. And then the others say we have to grow without saying what has to grow. So of course we have to degrow pollution, we have to degrow inefficiency, we have to degrow the waste. There are things to degrow. But if we degrow the economy, where do we go? Not enough money for health, education, social security, pension funds. And if you degrow the economy, probably you go into a social chaos. So you try another possibility, and there is one I love to describe as qualitative growth. Qualitative growth is when you grow the economy, you create jobs just by replacing what is polluting by what is protecting the environment. That would lead us in another direction. Is it possible with natural resources to do that? Well, all this we have to test, but without the ideology of being left or right-wing, without the ideology of being ecologist, green activist, or industrial, or businessman, or investment fund, and without these ideologies, just look at what happens according to the different levels of action. And these type of things, I've been thinking a lot when I was flying with Solar Impulse. And I thought it was so important to change the narrative. Because if we are still stuck in the critical situation we have today, it's probably because the straight line we have followed until now had the narrative of a very expensive protection of the environment, very boring protection of the environment, also very sacrificial, where we have to decrease mobility, comfort, economic growth, and people don't like that. So there has been a lot of resistance against the ecology, despite the fact that we absolutely should have protected the environment much more. So is it possible to take another altitude, another direction, by saying the new narrative for the ecology could be exciting, federating, profitable, creating jobs? Well, that would be an ideal situation. Is it possible or not? And when I was flying in Solar Impulse, especially on long flights, I had a lot of time to think about that. And there was one moment I remember that was like a revelation. I was looking at the sun, which was giving me enough energy to fly day and night. I had the big propellers turning with no noise, with no pollution, with no fuel, and I could fly forever. And there's one moment I thought, I'm pushed into the future. It's a science fiction movie. And actually not at all. I was not in the future. I was in the present with what the technologies of today allow us to do today. And this is when I understood that if I was not in the future, it meant that the rest of the world was in the past. But look at the reality. Isn't it exactly like this? What is the world of today? It's a world that is in the past. We have combustion engines with a maximum efficiency of 27%, usually much less, when my electric engines have 97% of efficiency. I was losing no energy. In a thermal engine, you lose at least 3/4 of the energy you put in your tank because of the bad yield. We live in a house with badly insulated houses, with outdated and inefficient lighting, cooling, and heating systems. Inefficient industrial processes, dirty ways to produce electricity with fossil fuels. Are we proud of that? But this is the reality. So when we are too much ashamed, we bravely wave our smartphone to make believe we are modern. But everything else that we use still comes from the beginning of the oil era 120 years ago. And this has to change. But if you say that we have to change everything, you create a lot of resistance. Because here I speak maybe more as a psychiatrist, as the explorer. But people hate to change. People want to keep what they have. They don't want to be pushed into another direction. So instead of pushing them, you have to pull them. You have to inspire them. You have to give them the wish to do something differently. And there is one word that for me is really important. It's modernization. Don't say we have to change everything. Say we have to modernize everything. Modernize everything, what does it mean? It is modernizing the infrastructures in energy, in mobility, in construction, in industry, in agriculture, in waste management. And imagine it's profitable. It's the biggest market opportunity of the century. Of course, if it's too expensive, nobody will do it. So we end up with the fact that we need to modernize everything and we have to check if it's profitable for the industry or not. And this is what we have worked on for 6 years with the Solar Impulse Foundation. Of course, the success of the flight was not a goal in itself. It was just a way to have access to more credibility, more influence, more performance, more experience to do better. So this is why we put this panel in front of the team, take it further. And what was it for us, this take it further? It was this challenge you've seen in the movie of identifying economically profitable solutions to protect the environment, but solutions that exist today. Because I don't like the technophile solutionism where you say, we will develop solutions in the future to repair what we are destroying today. That doesn't work, because it's an alibi to do nothing. And in that sense, I agree with the green activist. Don't make believe that we can continue what we do wrong today because maybe there will be something in the future that will help us. No, we need solutions today, and only the solutions of today can be implemented. And this is one criteria that our experts have been taken into consideration to make that portfolio of solutions. Several of them are members of Agoria. I met them this afternoon. We exchanged about their success stories, how they're using this label, how they are making their business. It's really exciting to see that there are so many solutions. And of course, even if people told me in the beginning it was impossible, that we could identify only 300, I don't know why 300, but they said no more than 300, because probably it's the number of problems that they can count. But there are much more solutions than problems, because most of the problems, we don't identify them correctly. So last year, we hit the bar of 1,000. We have now 1,400. All these names here are solutions that exist. They are profitable for the one producing them, for the consumer using them, and they protect the environment, either because it's better than anything else, or just because it's a new business opportunity. And this should not be underestimated. The new business opportunities, just give you an example like that. It's a system to recover the heat from the chimney of the factories. It's a startup that developed the system, they're selling the system, they are hiring people, and the factory can make between 20 and 40% reduction in the energy bill. And all this doesn't go in the atmosphere as CO2 or pollution. So today, there is a fantastic opportunity. We can decouple the economic growth from the quantity of the production, consumption, and waste to couple it to the quality of the efficiency. What does it mean? It means that we don't need to sell and produce always more in a linear economy. We have all the solutions we need to be so much efficient that we save the resources, that we save the energy, that it costs less to produce something or to use it. And if it costs less, you have a higher margin, and you use this margin to reimburse the upfront investment. And there are a lot of companies now in the finance industry who are ready to fund this type of things. You know, buying a heating system is maybe already outdated. You can have heating systems with heat pump and geothermia with a leasing system. And this uses 6 times less energy than a normal heating system with Russian gas or Russian oil. So we are ready with all the solutions, all the innovators, all the need. Now, why are we still stuck? It still doesn't work. There are not enough of these solutions that make their way to the market. It's profitable, it exists, it protects the environment, we need it. And there are all these startups who tell me it's difficult to do business. And we have to analyze that. The regulation today is as outdated as the technology. It means that it is still legal to pollute, it's still legal to waste, it's still legal to be inefficient. So a lot of people will say, we are legal what we do. Why should we do anything else? Why should we change? This is why, and I was telling that to the Minister of the Environment, I have a lot of expectations from the governments, from the political world. We absolutely need the governments today to give a clear vision of the future for the industries and for the people who invest. Because it's not the same if a country decides to go for hydrogen or for solar, for geothermia or for hydroelectricity or for biomass, if they want to reduce fossil fuels or not, if, and so on. All this if is very, very scary for the companies who do not know where to invest and what to do. So who can change that? Because even if you have the political world who wants to go forward, you have the administration who is a little bit paralyzed by the inertia of the past. Difficult, you want to renovate a building. So, of course, you need the tax administration, you need the permit to construct, you need the landscape protection, you need the administration that is taking care and protecting the people renting the flats. But if they're all separate, nobody will do the work. If they all work together, the saving done by the people renting the flat can be used by the investor to renovate the building, otherwise he will never do it. So you see that at the end, it's a human problem. It's a human problem. And I thought I would end up my life going from being a psychiatrist to an explorer. No, I go back to being a psychiatrist. Because without this human factor, we'll never succeed. So, of course, we need the green activists to push, because without them, probably things would not move as fast. But it's not enough to have young people in the streets screaming, problems, problems. We need to scream, solutions, solutions. And who can say that? It's you. Basically, it's you. It's the business world. It's the world of industry. It's the leaders of big, small, or medium corporations. You have to give your support to the governments and say, we need to make better business and protect the environment. We absolutely need a regulation that is modern. And when I say modern, it doesn't mean more regulation, it means modern regulation, things that allow new technologies to happen. If you have a public procurement, and the first and only criteria is to have a cheap thing to buy, and you don't take care of the total cost of ownership over 10 or 20 years, it doesn't work. You buy a diesel bus because it is cheaper on the spot, but over 10 years' time, you lose 400,000 euros on each bus if it's not electric. So we see where to act. And now it's clear that all these sectors have to be treated, knowing that it's profitable and knowing that it's worth it. I will end up with this. I'm so passionate about what I'm saying, I have no idea how much time I spoke already, so we're going to see. I would like to end up with this picture here, which is the summary of everything I told you. It's the porthole of the Breitling Orbiter 3 capsule when I flew around the world non-stop in the balloon. After 20 days, it was full of ice because of the moisture of the night, and on the other side, there is a rising sun. But we will never see the rising sun if we don't first go through the ice. And this is what people are very afraid to do in life, because there is ice, there is problem, there is crisis, there is difficulties, fear, suffering, whatever. And have you noticed that quite often there are people who say, the future is too much frightening, I prefer to suffer in the problem I know rather than to take the risk of changing anything. And at this moment, it's a decision of being a victim of the past. The pioneering spirit, the exploration spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit, this is what we need at that stage. To understand that in each crisis, in each problem, we can be the actors of the future by learning the new tools, the new mindset, the new solutions that can make us better after the crisis than we were before. In other words, if we accept the crisis, it becomes an adventure. If you refuse the adventure, it will remain a crisis. And today, we really have this choice to make. There are a lot of crises. We can stay in the ice and suffer, and it's going to be a miserable quality of life for everyone. Or we can wake up and say the solutions exist. Now we have to use them, we have to implement them, and we will have a modern world. What does it mean, a modern world? It means a world where we save so much energy by being efficient that the renewable sources are enough. A world where the construction is made with zero-carbon cement and concrete, where the demolition waste are recycled into the concrete for the new buildings, where you have a domotic that is so efficient that you are zero carbon and energy neutral in the buildings, where you have an electric mobility that is at the same time storing the energy from wind and solar to give it back to the grid during the peak of consumptions, and a world where there is no waste, no landfills, because the solutions already exist to take all the waste and make construction stones, gravel, furniture, high quality oil, solvents, or whatever. This is the world that is ready to be built today with the solutions that exist and that are available for everyone. I think it's really tempting. I think it's really a tempting world. Reuniting ecology and economy for the benefit of the quality of life. And not only for the next generation, but already today. So that's what I wish for all of us to do as an adventure. It's a fantastic goal. It's a fantastic way to improve quality of life. So, a lot of success, good luck, and I'm not going to end up by saying thank you like everybody after a speech. I'm going to end up and say, please do it.